Am I starting this? Okay,
You're
let's
starting
go.
it.
I didn't know if you were going to say the first thing. Sorry. Okay.
No, this is
Take
us.
two.
No, we don't.
Next.
No,
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 I'm just
no. We just edit that part
okay.
out.
Okay.
Just like
Okay.
edit this part. Okay, ready?
Okay.
So here we are, Jeff.
Hello. 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 Hello.
A little loud, Jeff. A little loud.
Sorry about that. I'm so excited that
And
I
we're excited.
can't
Okay,
stop being
so
excited.
this is our first episode of When Starbucks Was Fun. Can you believe it?
I
Can you believe it's
I'm
been 30 years?
we've been talking about this for at least a year. Like
Yeah,
we're going to do this, we're not going to do this, we're going to do this. And then you were like, let's just do it.
let's just do it. And
So
not
we're
to
doing it.
and not just to mention that I feel that even back in the day, I was like, um, "You're so funny. Why aren't you doing stuff?" I was like trying to get you to do stuff then. So now I feel like it's actually 30 years later. Ugh,
It
God,
only took 30 years.
it only took 30 years. Listen, everybody, if you stick to if you stick to your guns, if you stick to what you want to do and you wait 30 years, you too shall finally reach where you want to go. Okay, so let's
Like Rumpelstiltskin, just sleeping for 30 years.
yeah, exactly. No big deal. Okay, let's talk to everybody about what this show is going to be about. But before we talk, in case we have attracted some of your newer Starbuckians, that's what they used to call it back in the
The
day,
younger baristas,
the younger
the
baristas,
new age of baristas.
the new age of baristas. We want to get into that, but we want to do a little brief synopsis of what this podcast is going to be about. So go for it, Jeff. Let them
So,
know.
we're going to talk a lot about our experience being the beginning of this Starbucks phenomenon that made its way to Los Angeles in the 90s. We were kind of like the pioneers, if you will, of this
100%.
movement, so to speak. I mean, it did start in Seattle, obviously, in the
Yeah,
70s,
right.
but it hadn't made its way, it hadn't encroached into Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And I think when things like Friends and Frasier and Coffeehouse Culture was really booming in the early 90s, Starbucks saw the opportunity to be like, hey, I think we got something here. And so that's when they came to Los Angeles. And it was a very different experience than you'll experience nowadays at a Starbucks.
And that's what we're gonna get into, and before that, I just totally forgot. Let's introduce you. Who are you? What's your name? Where are you from? What's going on?
I feel like I'm in an AA meeting right now. Uh,
Well, we had a lot of
my name
those
is Jeff
in
Hartman,
our store. Yeah.
and we've known each other for 30 years. And right now, I work as a costumer in the entertainment industry.
Yes.
It's not as exciting as it sounds, but
Listen, we all just want to you don't have to say that part. We're gonna imagine it being exciting. It sounds exciting.
could be. Could
Could
be.
be.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm Adele Levine, and I have had a strange path, but I have another whole life where I am an intuitive and a medium. Yes, you can go ahead and make the jokes about size, the medium size coffee is a tall or whatever. I hear these jokes all the time. It's like, are you a size medium? So I was thinking of like the tall size. I don't know where I was going,
Well, the
but the
tall
point is,
isn't a medium anymore, darling.
oh,
It
sorry,
was when we were kids,
you
when
are
we were
correct.
in our
Correct.
20s.
I stand corrected. But I am an intuitive and a medium in this other part of my life, and that is something I do. I have another podcast called The House Medium, and it's a paranormal one. But in this one, I even created my own digital coffee shop called the Medium Brew Cafe. And so in this podcast, I get to just do all coffee
All the
all
time.
all the time. And I feel like what we're gonna get into that I really thought was amazing is that people don't realize that Starbucks was a phenomenon. Like, it wasn't the McDonald's fast food thing you see today,
Not
and
at
we're
all.
gonna take you through all of that. We're gonna go revisit the '90s. We're gonna have ourselves travel through what it was like when we started. I think people think that it was like how it is today, and You're gonna be shocked. And because I was gonna kinda add to what you're saying, Jeff, that when it came to LA being the entertainment capital of the world,
Yes.
it really was part of their brilliant plan was to get all the, like, entertainment people into the shops.
Well, we were very we were on the beginning of end of that whole Starbucks being part of the culture of the culture,
Yeah.
period. I mean, I remember when it first opened and it was like, I had no idea what Starbucks meant, what it was, never had heard of it.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, it's a coffee house. I mean, there were lots of independent coffee houses at the time. And so I just thought it was just another one of those. It was not.
And to that note, we forgot this. We want to give a shout out. We want to straight off the bat show our
Straight off.
support and love to the unionizing of Starbucks.
Because we weren't smart enough to think of that.
No, we were young and dumb
I, I,
as
I didn't know what that meant. When we were young and we were dumb. That's what it feels like.
back in the 90s when we were young. We were, and the truth is also you have to realize, like, we have recently discovered because we had this debate. We thought we opened the second or third. I thought we opened the second or third store in
Mhm,
LA. It
mhm.
is. We have found out, and it's still crazy. It's still crazy. It was the fourth or fifth store in LA,
Right, in LA County,
in
period.
LA County, and
Yeah.
it just period.
I mean,
So
right now, I'm gonna interject for a second. There's
sure,
5 or there's about 10 within a stone's throw of where I am right now.
correct.
So, it was a lot different.
It was a lot different. It was insane. So we have some special treats. We have a couple of special treats. First of all, we're going to take you from, like, I opened this fourth or fifth store. I was like one of the original crew. So we are going to talk about all that and my experience. And then Jeff came not too long after. And a lot of us still know each other. That's how crazy that time
It's
was.
I mean, if you think about it, I don't know of any other job I've ever had where I've kept in touch with the people I worked with as much as the crew at Starbucks.
Correct. And people probably like hearing this because today's Starbucks is like you get the job, you do your job, you're like, whatever, I'm out of here. And you like probably will never see these people again. But in that time, and this is what we're going to go over, we had to, it was so crazy. The
Mm,
phenomenon was so insane that we kind of bonded together and we just rode this wave. And I'm going to say a little something just to give you an idea that I was telling Jeff recently of how crazy it was at time. It was such a crazy time that we were becoming known. We were becoming known at the store. That I was out in the world and one of my favorite shows called Northern Exposure, an actor that I recognized came up to me and said, "Aren't you the Starbucks girl?"
yeah.
To me. And that's kind of sets the precedent of what we're going to show you that people don't seem to realize was happening at the
Oh,
time.
yeah. We were kind of like in an aquarium.
Yes,
We were like
that's
on
a good
display like a zoo.
description.
Like
Yeah.
because not only were we it's hard to put into like it's hard to like put it into words, but we were kind of like the entertainment at the time. Like
Yes.
because let's face it, in the 90s we didn't have there was no World Wide Web internet that was readily available at every coffee shop.
No social media,
No social media, no
no
cell phones.
TMZ, because we would have been calling TMZ if we could have and gotten paid because we had a lot of celebrities coming in there.
I mean, put some money in my tip jar, Harvey. So, yeah, so we didn't have a lot of the stuff that nowadays everybody just sort of thinks it
Mhm.
was always there. We
Right.
there were newspapers. What?
Newspapers.
What are these archaic
Newspaper.
things you talk
Oh,
about?
I just remember we had newspapers in the store
Yeah,
where
we sold them.
we sold them.
Yeah. Yeah,
This is how long ago it was, ladies and gentlemen,
newspapers.
or
Now
children who are listening.
they weren't stone pamphlets, but they were close. Okay.
And
Um,
behind Jeff, 'cause oh, wait, this is the other treat I want people to realize. Jeff being a historian of sorts, have saved so many things of memorabilia from Starbucks
it's
that I
crazy.
am in shock that we are gonna show you, and you're gonna be able to see it as we describe what they are, because 'cause you're gonna be like, "What are these relics?" And
I'm gonna start my own Starbucks museum.
yes, you can contact Jeff if, Starbucks, you're listening. Are you listening? Yeah,
I
because
have too much.
he has
It's a lot.
what?
It's a lot.
It's perfect for what we're trying to do. So behind him is these posters that we used to stare at because back in that time, how the coffee things was made was a whole thing. So we have so much to cover, but we're going to start and build. We're going to start at the beginning, and we will be having guests on from the original crew because they all are like, "What?" They are going to come on
Everybody's
and
got a story.
everybody's got a story. We also have planned in the works to have a reunion, and we're probably going to record that. And you're going to see that this was a different time and a
Yes.
different experience, and we're going to have fun with it. So where should we start, Jeff?
Well, I think since you were hired first, I think you should start your little story. Little Ola Dayla.
Oh, me? Okay. Well, let me get one of my I wish I was like selling them, but these are actually Costco, so I'm not. But espresso beans.
Plug.
Plug for Costco that I get no money from. Like they need me.
They're
Okay.
like, who are you?
Actually, I lied. I lied. These are not from Costco. I got these online and they're actually one of the best. You can contact me if I remember the name. I'm not like Jeff. I threw away the bag already.
Yeah, I probably would still have it. I'm just saying.
I'm literally the type of person that goes, I throw things away immediately and then I regret it. Okay. So I found out recently because we are going to have our old original manager on this
I'm
podcast.
so excited that he will be coming on the show.
It's insane. And Tony has so many secrets
Ugh,
because I didn't realize this. I thought he was, I don't know why I thought this because you got to realize Starbucks was so new that I thought we all were new. So I
mhm.
thought he was starting with all of us. Like they just kind of trained him and everything. No, apparently he worked at a couple of other stores before he got this store.
I
So
didn't know
this
that either.
store, I didn't know that either. He told me that recently on Instagram. Thanks, Tony. Shout
God
out. He'll
bless
be
Tony.
God bless Tony. He was a good, really good manager. He
I
was
mean, I
fun.
will tell you, he was probably my favorite boss I've ever had.
Tony, did you hear that? We're admitting something. You were our favorite. He was my favorite boss I ever had
I
too.
mean, just well, he was also really close to our age, and I think that made a huge difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. I thought he was a lot older because he acted more mature in a lot of ways. Like, 'cause he
Did
was
he?
well, Tony,
Sorry, Tony. Sorry, Tony.
sometimes. But I think I thought he was older because he was responsible for this huge, like, store,
Well,
and
yes. Yeah.
okay,
Because
so this
he was
big
the boss.
responsibility.
Yes, exactly.
But what I wanna set up is that this store was on we're gonna say the name of the store, it was on Laurel Canyon and Vantage, right off of Ventura Boulevard,
It was
right?
on
That's
Ventura and Vantage, just,
between Laurel Canyon and
yes.
Vantage.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
my correction.
exactly.
On Ventura Boulevard, and if you know LA, Ventura is, like, the main, like,
It was in a
drag.
Sheryl Crow song. I
Yeah,
mean, come on.
I didn't yeah, exactly. Duh, come on. I kinda forgot that, but yes. Okay,
90s
so
baby.
90s
Anyway,
baby. So, are you a 90s baby or are you you're
no,
not a 90s
90s.
baby.
We don't wanna
No,
talk about it, but yes, you're right. I just remember the 90s better than a baby.
you're
What?
you're you're a 90s, like, this is where we were living in
Young
our
adult.
20s, like
Young adult.
Reality Bites, that was our era.
Such a good movie. Anyway,
Yes.
we won't get into
Okay.
that.
Okay, we're not getting into that. But we're going to do a lot of pop culture, references into this,
Yes.
obviously. So this is a big store. Just picture like huge glass goes all like windows all around, and it was a
Aquarium.
giant aquarium. Jeff, that is so good. Write that down. Okay.
I don't need to. It's right here.
Oh, okay. Um, and it was like huge store, and I remember this very clearly. Two things. One, and Jeff will contest to this. They in those days had Starbucks School. I don't know if they still have Starbucks School, but in those days, if you got hired by Starbucks, you went to the Starbucks School, which was at the Sherman Oaks store, which is
Hmm.
why I thought we were the second store. So Sherman Oaks was literally, it's like 10 minutes from where we
Yeah,
are. We were in Studio City, they were in Sherman Oaks.
that it's still
And
there. It's the one in the Lorena in the
no, the
Lorena.
store is still there, but
Yeah,
I don't think they have the school at Sherman Oaks anymore. Pretty
who
much doubt it.
knows?
I doubt it.
I
Well,
doubt
any
it.
Starbucks employees be feel free.
It's
We
probably all
are
online.
we're going to definitely have a segment in reading your emails. So you can email us at starbuckswasfun@gmail. If you have things you want to throw out, we're going to talk about it. But anyway, at the Sherman Oaks store, we had to go train, and it was crazy. I remember going like, "This is like serious goddamn business." Okay,
Hmm.
they made us sip the coffee. We had to do tasting. They had we had a whole thing. We had to learn how to make the drinks. We had to learn how to call the drinks. It was a different time, and which is why we're going to have to slowly kind of spell this out because it was so different that there's no remnants of it today,
No,
barely. Okay,
barely.
so then when I'm standing there, I remember like going to the Starbucks store and feeling kind of taken care of because I was like, okay, they're really training us. Like I worked at a coffee shop before, but it was like a local mom and pop coffee shop and I
Hmm.
kind of ran it. But I was like, they were like, no, we're going to train you on how to do all the right things right. Like it was intense, by the way. And then we're standing there. I remember before they were like putting the store all together and everything, and this is when it was green and just kind of
Hmm.
yellow.
Yeah.
And we're standing there, and I'm standing in front of the pastry, and we're all lined up. And the district manager came in with Tony and stood in front of us and was like, this store is going to be extremely busy. It will be one of our busiest stores yet. You're going to have the most high demanding customers out of all the stores. It's going to be very challenging. I'm like, what the hell? And they were like,
Right.
celebrities are going to come in here, famous people are going to come in here. And I was like signing up for some coffee job. And I was like lined up like we're in the army or something.
Soldier.
I was like, damn. I was like, this is some serious coffee business. And I was like, I signed up because back then, and I think it's still the same, you got benefits for working only 25 hours a week, health benefits. And I was like, this is what I'm here for, and the
Hmm.
coffee. And they were like, get ready to rumble. And I was like, damn, okay. And that is how I remember it began for me.
Are you ready? Ding, ding, ding. Well, I'm telling you, when those doors opened, and this is no joke, in the morning, there would sometimes be people waiting outside
Yeah,
at the door, just waiting for us to unlock. It was like,
it was
it was
insane.
nutty. It was nutty. It was
Okay, so
nutty.
then I will take you through. So we open the store and we start, and it is insanity. Like the amount of business we had, people, the line would go out, and we had to push people out the door, and people were lined up. And what they were also lined up to do was to watch us on bar because back then it was real. Like it was this sound. Like it was real
Play it,
sound.
play it.
It's some real sound. It was all this. We're like grinding some coffee. And back then, we also had to grind coffee beans every morning in these large, in these large filters. Right, here we go. Here's the machine. It's going. And we had to grind it in these large filters and weigh them out on scales.
Hmm. Hmm.
And each one, and then we would take this huge filter and we would put it in these big cylinder like plastic things like
Tupperwares,
contain
like big
Tupperwares.
Tupperwares.
Right, and then you would put, like, because they didn't invent anything then, you would take
No,
pastry.
you're right. They didn't have anything.
Nothing, and we just took pastry, like, wax
Paper.
sheets, paper in between, and then we would on top with masking tape, because they didn't have stickers or anything, and we'd write the date, because we were taught it only was 24 hours,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
then we had timers on each coffee pot, and they could only be what, 57
I think it
minutes?
was an hour. It was
An
an
hour.
hour.
It was
Yeah.
an hour, and we had to change it every hour.
Every
Well, let me
time
tell
that
you, and you dump the coffee. Well, we didn't have that problem, obviously.
right.
So, there would always so we had to set that up for the day, and then there would always be someone that and we had these large drawers filled with coffee beans, and on the top front of the drawers, we had magnets that had the name of the
Yep,
coffee beans, and you
yep.
had to know what each coffee bean, and there would be somebody standing there, be like, "Oh, I want to get a pound of coffee," and they had to stand there, like, "What can I do for you, ma'am?" And they'd be like, What is Ethiopia like?" We're like, "We can make a French press for you." That's what we were doing in those days. Oh, you can? Yes. Would
Oh,
you like to taste it?
I'm having flashbacks.
Can
Hold
you
on.
even imagine today, like, "Hold on, let me make a French press for that. Would you like to taste that?" And yes, and we had to hand roll the beans so they went all the way down and they were tight, tight, because no air or sunlight. We were taught all of these
Oh,
things.
yeah.
So we're doing that, and we're doing the bar, which we'll get into because that's a whole nother thing, and calling out drinks, and that was a whole thing, and all of these things created a show, and
Yep.
most of the people who worked at this particular Starbucks were actors, so a show was given.
Sign me up.
Well, you did sign up.
Well, yeah, I did. A few
Perfect
months
segue
later.
for you,
A few
and
months
when you
later.
and then you come in, so by the so what I realized is it was like, okay, I'm in the middle of one of the most biggest phenomenon. We had people coming up to the going, "How can I buy one?" And people coming up going, "I know Mr. Starbucks." I'm like, okay, because there was no Mr. Starbucks.
You
People,
lying.
yep, and people didn't like, and it because people started to see it was like, how do I get this money? That's what they
Yeah.
were realizing. And I remember enjoying going like, there is no Mr. Starbucks. There's just Howard Schultz, who's the CEO. So be on your way. Because it was also LA.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the beginning.
Well, now,
And
did
the
you say your
phenomenon.
hire date? Because I don't know if you did.
I don't know my hire date. I just know from Tony that the store opened in 94, July 5th. And
July
obviously I
5th,
was probably hired a month
month
before that
before that.
because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of trained us for this is how serious we were. I think we trained for about 3 to 4 weeks in
Holy Toledo.
Starbucks school.
Starbucks University, can I help you? Um, so segue,
Mhm.
flash forward, fast forward, or flash forward, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Uh, November of 94.
Okay.
And I, the little brief backstory, I was a full-time student at Cal State Northridge. I was working part-time at a bank. Two of my theater friends were hired by Tony at the Starbucks in Studio City. And they were like, they're looking for more people. Are you interested? And I was like, well, I have two of my friends working there. So yeah, I'll go. So I remember I went, I was so nervous. I mean, I don't think I'd ever had a job interview. Of course, I was 22. Why would you?
Right.
And
And we have to like pause for a minute to remind for the young people, the Z generation, that's like, what do you mean? In those days, you could just roll out of bed, and I used to do it and call and go like, "Are you hiring?" And they're like, "Yeah, come in." You're like, "What do you, I'm available." And then you would get hired. It wasn't like a big deal to get jobs at that time.
yeah,
And it
they
what
go ahead.
they were begging us to like work because
And
it wasn't like today. Today people have to like send in emails and then they have to apply only online. You could just walk into somewhere and go like, "You're hiring," and they're like, "Yeah."
we had one of those tear off tablets full of applications,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
So anyway, I filled one of those out, and I didn't interview with Tony though. I interviewed with Andy. I interviewed
Ooh,
with the assistant manager.
which we will be having on as well, hopefully. Hopefully, we're gonna be reaching out to Andy through
So
another partner, and
partner.
partner, does that bring you does it
It
excite you,
sounds a little
Starbuckians?
weird now, but it
That
was fine
sounds
then.
Was yeah, that's not they were trying to make us feel like we were a part
part
of
of the
building
company.
this
Yes.
company,
And
which
we
you as
were.
you know well, I never bought that, but anyway, let's go on.
Well, because in the real world,
In the real world, we'll get into that one too.
so I interviewed with Andy, and one of the I will say one of the draws. Not only was it because two of my friends worked there,
Mhm.
was that the I was used to working with older women because
Right.
I worked at a bank. Now there were some college students who worked there, but for the most part, it was very female centric
Okay.
and older. It was an older staff of
Yeah.
people. So to be able to work at a place that were people my age, and then I met, and Andy and Tony were both within our generation. They weren't like our parents' age.
Right.
It felt like this is
Cool.
going to be awesome because these are
Yeah.
young people running this place. It's going to be a fun time to work, and it was for the most part. I mean, whatever. In hindsight, it was fun, and and also, the whole health benefits thing. The other thing was they were one of the first companies, because we should remember that in the 90s it was still very guarded if you were out.
Mhm.
Like I came out when I was 19. I didn't care. My parents were awesome. My family. I couldn't have asked for a more supportive surrounding. And I was out at school. And, but being out as a gay person back then was very it was not looked upon as it is now. It was not empowering. I mean, it was for the person, but we were still sort of, the dregs of the population in some people's eyes. Like, we were
Mhm.
not looked upon favorably, so to speak.
Yeah,
So
it was a very different time. I
it
mean,
was a very different time.
even when we went to West Hollywood, it was like 2 clubs, that was it.
Yeah.
It's not
I
the
mean, it was,
booming area it is today.
now, was it better? The 70s started it, the 80s, of course, was going, and then you had the AIDS epidemic, which really made a lot of gay people, once again,
Go
these
back in the
villains
closet.
in the
Yeah,
society.
yeah.
So even the early 90s, it wasn't as favorable, is what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
And Starbucks was one of the first companies, big companies that I can remember that was very LGBT. Now
Yes.
it's QIA, but then it was just LGBT friendly. Like it
Mhm.
was very like, so a lot of our partners were gay. Our, assistant or managers were gay, and they were out
Right.
about it. And the benefits would also provide benefits for same sex couples or domestic partners, and
Some
that
of
was
our managers, because we don't wanna
no.
mislabel
I
anyone.
said some of our managers,
Yeah,
yeah, of course. Some of the
yeah,
managers were not. I'm not saying ours was, but some of the
yeah.
managers
Yeah, and
around
district
were.
managers too. It
Right.
was I
So
remember thinking this is a very progressive
So it was
company.
very progressive for the early
Mhm.
90s when the climate was still very not super positive for LGBT
And that was
people.
one of the things they put out people wrote about in a
Yes.
lot and covered when they covered Starbucks. They were very covering all the time that this is a very progressive
Right.
company. They had domestic partners for insurance, and no one ever
Exactly.
heard of that before then.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that drew me in too because,
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
getting too old to be on my folks' insurance. And,
Mhm.
at 22, you're like, okay, now what? And the bank wasn't offering me anything because I was part time.
Damn
So
bank.
stupid bank.
Stupid bank.
Um, excuse me. I got a little. So I got hired. I think like the next day, Andy called me, and I think I met with Tony for like 10 minutes, and he's like, "Yeah, you're good. Well, when can you start?" And I was like, "Wow, that was quick." And but they were so, those two guys were just so warm, and like they were very different, but they were both warm, nice people. Like they were inviting, and like we were all in this weird fishbowl, and it was
Mhm.
like they were leading us in this weird experiment of Starbucks that we weren't sure if it was going to go one way or the other.
Right.
So I got hired in November of 94. I started, and boy, was I in for an awakening because it was, now I didn't work a lot of morning shifts. I remember the first morning shift I worked, I thought I was going to pass out because
It was insane.
it was insane. I mean,
Mhm.
they had now working the register wasn't as bad for me as working the bar because at the time now, in those days, I sound like I'm 100. In those days, we didn't write on the cups yet.
But we wanna say those days because,
Right.
we're trying to that's the whole point of this podcast.
Exactly. Exactly. So
And that yeah, we did write on the cups, but we're
we
gonna go
didn't.
over we're gonna that's what we're leading into next is
Yeah.
how the system worked in that time. So
So you want to?
let
Do you want to take the wheel,
well,
darling?
I'm no, I was gonna say this. You didn't like working the bar, and funny, and it's because Jeff was very pleasurable on the register. Like he was very customer like
That's true.
friendly, and
That's
Adela
true.
was not. So I was very good at
Hmm.
the bar.
Hmm.
Tony would
Hmm.
always be like, "If you weren't as fast as you are in the bar, I don't know if I could keep you here. You
We'll
have a
see
bad
if he
attitude."
agrees to that. Well, because my personality has always been pretty positive and upbeat and
Very.
outgoing.
Yes.
And Adela at the time had, you know, her life caused her to act a little differently than her reaction was different than my reaction. So,
No, I could say I'll just comment on it. I was the same age, around the same age. We were in our early 20s.
yeah.
My mom had died, when I was 19 while I was in high school. My backstory, just so because if we're gonna get to know, because I talk about this on my other
Hmm.
podcasts and everything. My real mother died when I was 10 days old. So my aunt and uncle raised me, and then my aunt got sick when I was 16, and then she died. And I didn't have a good upbringing as well. There was a lot of like a lot of us Gen Xers, there was
Hmm.
and Jeff doesn't have this, but I did. A lot of mistreatment and abuse and things that were done. And it all of that stirred into a very angry Adela.
Mm,
And those days we had no mental health. We had no mental health help.
true.
It was like, oh, you had a bad, horrible upbringing and you went through this traumatic thing. Well, guess what? Go get a job. And
Yeah.
that was
Suck it
like,
up,
suck it
buttercup.
up. And they sucked it up. And it was an environment of very, very crazy snootiness coming at me, which was hard to deal with. And
Well,
I
yeah.
and I will say this too, Jeff. You and Matt, which Matt was another
We got to
one
get
of
Matt
we
on.
got to get Matt on. He's
Got to get
hilarious
Matt
and
on.
wonderful. Matt I would flip out and they would go, "Adela, just let it roll off your back." And I was like, "What? Roll off your back? What is this concept?" And they kind of taught me that like believe it or not, one of those people that you say something and it's like a seed and it kind of planted somewhere because
Yeah.
I would think back to them and go, "How did they do that?" Cuz you were very gracious
What
on
would
the
Jeff and
register.
Matt do?
Jeff would smile and say, "Okay, get your latte ready, grande nothing latte right
Oh, I'm
away."
so sorry we made that wrong.
Yeah. And then we would go in the back, and I remember we would run to the back, and our favorite saying, at least a lot of us would go, "We're done. Just shoot me. It's over. I'm never gonna make it today," because it was so insane. So, anyway, let's go back to, like,
Okay. So
register
yes.
versus bar. Okay.
So the register person was planted there. They were in charge of like
Right.
brewing the coffee of the day, and we only had two
Backing
then.
backing the register person
Right. And then you had a person also who was like a
and getting the
floater.
pastries.
Yes, who got the pastries and like got the orders, and then you were basically ringing. It was
'Cause you couldn't move when you're on register. It was so
no.
crowded, it was so insane that the register person just stayed there, and
Yes.
it was kinda like we were on a rock concert or something, and you're like, "Listen, I need lights, the mic needs to be up." Like, it was like the net the person getting pastries and the coffee was your back
Yes,
they
they
were
were the
your
backup.
assistant, and they
Yeah.
would get the pastries
Yeah.
yeah, it
And
was
then they might get pulled off into Beanland, which is what we called the drawers with
yeah,
all the different beans
yes,
that we had to date on the drawers with a dry erase marker, and we could only
right.
keep them for they do not do that anymore. And they stopped that probably not
Long
long
time
ago.
ago,
But
but they also had did we have books that people would read the beans?
we had
Like,
passports, coffee passports.
oh my god, I fucking forgot about those goddamn
We
passports.
and people would I mean, it really did become like this, thing where
Mhm.
people who were really into this culture would
Yes.
be like, I just have to try the Ethiopian Sidamo, and then I have my whole passport filled. It was like, okay, here's a pound of Ethiopia, go knock
We
yourself.
would
And then
get the
they,
stickers. They
yes,
collected the
they would get the
stickers.
stickers. And the stickers, hold on a second, because I have a visual aid.
Here's a visual aid.
So this cup is one of the first travel mugs that Starbucks sold. I happen to still have one because I'm a hoarder. No, I'm not a hoarder. I'm a collector. Let's put it that way.
Let's put it that way.
It's nicer.
It's nicer.
So it looked like this. It was a globe. See, it says Starbucks at the top.
This is an OG mug.
And then it would have like a clippy thing in here.
Right, with the little sippy.
Yeah, for the sipping
And back then, they
and
didn't care that it
rubberized.
spilled all over you, and nobody was thinking about coffee, like mug
No,
sorry, uh,
coffee holders.
holders in the car. So you look
No,
at that, right, you're like, "How did people do it?" They just put it on their
their dashboard. I mean, their
dashboard.
lap. Where did you put this? I don't know, but this is original. But if you look at the bottom, I'll try and get it
Mhm.
better.
And
These were
describe
all
it
of
for people who are just
these
listening.
were the pictures on the
Mhm.
stickers. So each
Right.
thing, well, that wasn't
Wow, I
one.
cannot believe you got this.
So we have all of these. So all of the
And you have
people.
a bag with the sticker. Show them that. No?
Oh well,
Doesn't that one of the stickers?
this was one of the stickers. This was for the anniversary blend. That was much. It was like a year later when they did the 25th
But
anniversary.
anniversary blend was kind of a testament to everyone waited, and they were like, "Oh my god, the anniversary blend," because it was all about beans at that time.
It was all about the bean. It was the bean was king. That
And
was kind of.
what did we get once it was sorry, I
Go
interrupted you.
ahead. Go ahead. No, no, no. The
Sorry,
bean was
sorry,
king.
sorry.
Go ahead.
The bean was king. But I don't know, do you happen to know, maybe we should Google it. Do Starbucks employees still get a free pound of coffee each week?
I'm gonna say I think they do. I don't know this for a fact. I don't
Tell
know
us.
anybody who works there.
Anybody who's listening, reach out. We wanna know, but back then, it was like gold. We used to trade,
Barter,
barter.
barter, and don't fire me. Wait, you can't. I don't work there anymore. Um, they would. You would be like, okay, I'll give you a pound of coffee. Like when your weekly coffee,
Yeah.
could become
Mhm.
uh
We
had
could
some
we could
currency to it.
we would sometimes we would save a few pounds, and I guess we should say this for reference, we didn't say this. How long did you work? Because this is important. Because this is why we know so much.
Okay,
You
so
were how many years did you work
I
for
started
Starbucks?
in '94
Mhm.
and I left in, I believe it was September of '02.
God, you have a good memory, Jeff.
Because, well, and the reason not September of '02, sorry, September of '03, because that's when I started working in the studios.
And did you become a manager eventually, or did you just go
Never
become a
was a
lead?
manager, never wanted to
Okay,
be a manager. I was always a shift supervisor.
okay. I started in '94, and I was on and off and on and off and on and off. I would say for, like, 10 years. So what year would that be?
Uh, 2004,
And that little
'94.
the thumbs up is because your
Oh, I
phone
was
is making doing it. It went like this. It did thumbs
sorry.
sorry, you got it
I use
wrong.
my hands a lot. I can't help it.
No, I just pointing it out so nobody thinks we inserted that. We did
Oh,
not.
we did not. No,
The app did, but, so if from '94 for 10 years, what would that be?
2004.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. I would say that I remember my last one the last time I worked at Starbucks was in Vegas, and because you can switch to any Starbucks in case people don't know
I
about
mean, if
Starbucks.
if they'll let you transfer, but they have to be open to.
Yeah,
Yes, you can
yeah,
transfer
but I
within the
trans
company. Yeah.
within the company, but I worked in Seattle, I worked in Vegas, I've transferred a few times. Um, and I think that was the last time, and I think that's gotta be, like, around the same time as you, around
Yeah.
2002. So I think
Yeah.
I was on and off for, like, 8, 9 years,
And I was full
and
time, full
yeah,
speed ahead.
'cause Starbucks would let you in those days, and I don't know, again, let us know, listeners, but in those days, you could, like, leave and come back and still, like, get hired through your partner number and
Yes.
everything like that.
Which
Which let's explain what a partner number is,
so
because we have
when
visuals, everyone, thanks to goddamn Jeff.
God damn me. I
I
don't
love
want
it.
to show
Your
like
number.
yeah, well, I don't care about the number, but I don't want to show my full name and all
No,
that
no, no,
stuff.
no,
So So,
just like cover it with your finger.
so
Can you do it?
yeah, like this. So we would get partner cards. I don't know. Can you see that? It says
And
partner
that's
card.
how the partner cards was then. Yes, you can
It was
see it.
just a paper, and then it had like your store number, and then it had your name and the date it expired and your partner number.
And back then, I should preface it because we're like trying to build, like we're trying to lay the land for you before we get to all the, we're trying to lay all the land. Back then, everyone, you needed a paper card, but it might sound ancient to you. But back then, I remember being so impressed by the register like technology because they had
Oh my
touch
God.
screen. And we were like, "What the fuck is this, like, space odyssey going on over here?" Because it was touch screen
Yeah.
and nobody had that. Like, I
Nope.
worked other jobs, everyone worked other jobs where it was still old school, like, buttons
Register.
and
Yeah.
registered, and they had ability to go add whip or add syrup. So
Yep.
they were keeping track of all the drinks, and they were keeping track of, like, ho what was popular, what wasn't popular. At the time, we were allowed to eat the pastries as long as we checked it out, and we were allowed to have as much
Drink as
coffee
much as
as
we
want.
want.
Of course, they wanted us hyped on coffee as much as we want because they wanted us to sell the coffee. That's why they would say, "Drink all the drinks. We want you
They
to know
wanted
it."
to see you drinking it,
Yeah,
which I will interject.
yeah.
I didn't drink coffee until I started working at Starbucks.
Mhm.
I loved the smell of coffee. I've always loved the smell of coffee. I didn't love the taste of it. And
Right.
then, I mean, when I started, I would start with I would get an iced grande. I'm going to say it in the right order because we were trained and it's ingrained in my brain.
Yes, it's ingrained in mine too.
I would get an iced grande single shot mocha.
Yeah.
I would only get one shot of
Well,
espresso,
babe, oh, you basically had chocolate milk with a little espresso in it.
but I worked my way up. But
You
at the
did.
time, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to drink that. I mean, the tastings at the coffee school. Now, my coffee school experience was a little different. My Starbucks University badge was different in that my first class was done. Okay, this is how crazy it was because they didn't have a training center then in Los Angeles. At least when I started, I don't know if Starbucks because the Sherman Oaks store had
No,
remodeled. I don't know.
they just had us, like, go to Sherman Oaks'
Okay,
store,
okay.
and they did have a thing in the, and I could be wrong, we'll ask Tony, but with, I remember there being, like, a practice place, maybe it was somewhere else,
Mm,
and then we went to Sherman Oaks to kinda, like, shadow them and learn from
got it.
them. Yeah.
Well, when I started, my first class was in a hotel. This sounds horrible.
What the hell? Alright, Starbucks.
It was in a hotel room at the Carriage Inn off of
The carriage
Sepulveda
in, that's
at
even
the
worse.
at Sepulveda, and I think
No.
that's what it's called. Carriage, is that what it was? Now it's a Holiday
Yeah,
Inn or
it is
something,
carriage in.
but
That's
it
like
was
a,
on Sepulveda and Burbank, and it was like, I guess it was a suite, and you had all of these lines of chairs of
what?
these new hires. And Rebecca, remember Rebecca? God, what was her last name?
I don't
I
remember.
don't remember, but she was very much like a cross between Ali Sheedy and Winona Ryder, like from Breakfast Club and then from Reality Bites. I don't remember. She was a dancer. I remember that. Brenda will
Okay,
remember. When we have
okay.
Brenda on, she'll remember.
Right, we'll have Brenda on.
Because Rebecca and Brenda and I were all hired at the same around the same time.
Okay.
And Rebecca and I were in the class together, and it was like rows of chairs. There was no bed in the room, thank God, because that would be awkward. But there were
Then
rows of
we'd
chairs.
be having a whole different podcast right now.
Exactly. When Starbucks touched me. No. So I just remember we were sitting there and we're in these rows of like foldable chairs, and then the person leading it, I remember her name was Leslie. She was an African American manager, and I think she was the manager of the Starbucks in Sherman Oaks.
Okay,
Tony will know.
okay.
She was leading the first class, and it was like flip paper. Like it was a
Yeah,
big pad of
yeah,
paper, and they're
yeah.
writing stuff and then flipping it,
Mhm.
and then they would pass out, the little Starbucks sample cups of whatever
Yeah,
blend it was, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, I can taste nutty notes."
yeah. It
I don't
was
know.
it was insane. Okay, so let's get to how the drinks went in those days. So first
Oh,
of all,
boy.
you have to remember in that time, there were just basic drinks. There was mocha, cappuccino,
Mocha, latte. Oh, and
latte,
if you look behind me, let me
and
see.
that's the what's
That's the
behind.
notebook.
That's the notebook that had all of the drinks and stuff in it.
Now, unfortunately, up until a couple years ago, when my
Mhm.
mom passed and we were busy cleaning out her garage, and I was like, I got to get rid of some of this shit because I'm never going to need it again. Because I didn't want my brothers to have to deal with it when I die. So
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, I threw out all of this Starbucks stuff, and I swear to God, I had my hired paperwork in there still. I had like the partner workbook. I had a lot of stuff, and unfortunately now it's gone. But I saved the binder.
Awesome. Okay, so
Yeah,
that binder had like all the drinks and everything in it. So there was a latte, mocha, cappuccino, macchiato, and americano, and that is it.
and they had the doppio.
An doppio and a
Yeah,
shot of espresso.
right.
Okay. But that is it, and we only and Jeff and I were talking about this because he was like, "We had a million syrups." I go, "Have you seen Starbucks today?" I think they will definitely argue with this.
True.
We only had hazelnut, vanilla, almond, mint,
Creme de menthe. Yep.
Irish cream,
Raspberry.
and maybe like they finally and a raspberry, and they came out with a sugar-free vanilla because that was healthy in those days, by the way. They
And
were being
sugar-free
healthy.
vanilla was the only sugar-free they had at the time.
That was it.
Yeah.
And those were the drinks. So how it worked, Jeff, hold up your cup because we have to show them
Oh,
your cup.
well, this
And
one,
we'll describe it. I don't think that one. Never mind. You're right. It's probably not a good
that's not going
example.
to
But
work.
let's describe it. So if you look at the Starbucks cup, we and I'll use my Stanley cup as an example.
We're not plugging Well,
We're
we
not
could.
we
Uh,
could call us Stanley. We're open.
oh,
We're for sale.
Stanley.
We're for sale. Okay. So if you imagine this is the Starbucks logo, here was the round logo.
That was the medallion siren
This
logo.
is what they literally said. They're like, it's kind of like a C for cappuccino. That's what that side was. And then the side had a seam, and we'll reenact this with the real cup in the next podcast.
Yeah.
And the side had a seam, and the seam was, for some reason, that's a mocha. And then and then the back had letters. If
No, I
you look
think.
at,
Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Mhm.
yeah,
Keep
the
talking.
back had letters because I was a bar queen. So
Yeah.
I wasn't a register queen because we knew that my attitude wasn't going to allow that. So the, I was a bar queen. I did not, that was not my first.
Tony's like, Adela, get on the bar. Don't say anything.
He would literally like, why don't you hop on bar? And he was like, if you weren't so fast on bar, I don't know like what I do with you. So letters were back here for latte.
Latte.
So what we did was in that time, they were, I will say, the one thing I learned from Starbucks is they used to be brilliant marketers. So what
Mhm.
they did was if somebody said, I want a non-fat, we would write N cappuccino, we would write, and we had codes, and we would
Mhm.
write NF at the medallion. That's a
Right.
non-fat
Right.
cappuccino.
Right.
And if someone said, I want a non-fat, no foam, then we would write NF, and then we would do like a circle and a line for NF or something.
Yeah. No foam. Yeah.
We had lingo and
Shorthand. Shorthand.
shorthand, and they would write it on the cup. And by the way, we used to double cup because this was before sleeves were invented.
Correct.
That's how long ago we were working for them.
Yeah.
We watched the Starbucks revolution
The
happen in front of us.
evolution
Evolution, not
revolution.
revolution. I guess the Starbucks revolution's happening now.
It is it
We're
was an
for it.
evolution
We're
revolution.
for it. So so then when the person would come up to the register, we would say, "What do you want?" People like decaf. They would say,
Where's my Starbucks?
yeah, that's what they would say.
Where's my Starbucks?
No, they would say
I waited on her all the time.
all the time.
Tiffany, is that you? I don't know who Tiffany is.
And they would say, someone would say, like, can I get it? They would say, can I get a decaf? And they would say, maybe with non-fat. And this is how much we were trained to say it in an
Oh,
order,
yes.
that our job was to make everyone feel stupid for not knowing the order.
God. Oh wait, okay, keep talking because I want to say something also when you're done. I don't know if you're going to touch on it, so I'll let you finish.
Okay, so we would go, "You mean a decaf grande non-fat latte?" And they would go, "Oh, yes, that's the order." And then the person next to us would grab a little black marker, grab the cup, put it the decaf part at where the L is, and then run and put it on the bar facing the person making the drinks. And then, like, here's, like, for our sound effects. Then the person would be making the drink, and they would be hand steaming and hand pulling, and each drink had
Yeah.
to have, like, each espresso had to be pulled a certain amount of time. We had timers,
Yep.
hand timers that were set for 15 seconds, I think,
It
or 8.
wasn't an abacus, but yes.
And you would hit it, and you would have to time the espresso. Now, did we do that forever and ever? No. But in
No.
the beginning, we were made to do
Yes.
it. And then we had thermometers that went into the pitcher. You would pour the water. And did we have something fancy for the pitchers like they did it? No. We just took, like, something to put it on top of,
Oh
or
my
we just put
God,
it
you're
on the
right. It
bar.
was another pitcher. We would turn it
Another
upside
pitcher
down like
would
that.
turn right, and then we would, and it was all about how good you could steam that
Yeah. Get
milk, and
that
the better
thick
get
foam.
thick foam, and that's how you knew, it was a good barista. So then you would make the drink, and you would put it in the cup, and in the meantime, they're getting more drinks, and they would line them up. And then we would have 2 people on the bar, and we would be working the drinks together.
Yep.
Then we would take the cup, and we would put it out, and we'd say, "Decaf grande non-fat latte," and it would face us, and the people go, "How did you know my drink?
And
How do
they'd
you
be
guys
like,
how did you do this? How are you
it's
guys doing this?
witchcraft. It's
Wow."
witchcraft.
Little did they know I was already doing witchcraft in those days. But, I mean, and that was the magic. People would stand there to watch us
Mm.
go,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
were
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
doing, and then they would be, like, in shock, and they would go, "How are you?" And people used to come up with, like, we would never give it away. We were told not to give it away because that was the magic, and they
Right.
would watch us at the bar. So we'd have 2 people on bar, and
Yep.
we have a backup person, and that was before we opened double registers. Before, for a while we only had 1 register, and that's how it works. So people would have the drinks on there, and there was no names, there was no
No
boxes that
names.
you checked, there was double cupping. And by the way, lastly, and then I'll pass the mic to you, my favorite thing that I'm pissed at us that we didn't all create and invent these things and make millions of dollars is we used to take the same like wax paper that we got the pastries and did the whole thing
Mhm.
with coffee grinds.
Oh,
And we would put it over the
over.
coffee and put the lid over it because people were getting afraid of getting spilled on
Right.
if they asked for it. There was no plugs.
You are
What
correct.
a
I
great
remember that.
invention that was.
You're bringing that all back. That was way before the little green siren sticks would go into the sippy
Yeah,
hole.
I remember trauma very well. Go ahead.
Don't we all? And on the next I'm just kidding. So what I was gonna say was,
Yeah,
so back then we had 3 sizes. So we
yes,
need to talk about that for a second because there was
correct.
short, which was 8 ounces,
Yes.
tall, which was really a medium, but they called it tall because we had to be different, which was 12 ounces, and
Mhm.
then a grande, which was a large, which was 16 ounces.
Right.
We did no venti appeared in
Till
the making
way
of this
later.
Starbucks at the
Yeah,
time,
right.
and
It
a
was straight drink.
Trenta. What the hell's a Trenta? No, we didn't have that. So I just remember
Wait a
though.
minute, what's a Trenta? Is that a size now?
Oh, honey.
Oh,
Yes,
man,
that's been around for a while,
I am
but it's only
sorry. I
it's
am
an
out.
iced, and now it's just called when you were Starbucks was fun with Jeff. Um, no, Trenta means 30, and it's a 30-ounce. It's either iced coffee or iced tea.
Oh,
That's
these
what they say.
poor kids working at
Yeah,
Starbucks
I mean it's
today.
like
Okay.
giant. It's like that big.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But anyway, so
Mhm.
back then it was short, tall, grande, and I'll never forget when people be like, um, purposely, can I get a medium latte? And I'd be like, oh, okay, tall latte, whatever you call it,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever you call it. I call it a medium.
So here's the thing that people don't need to understand is that we were introducing to the world this whole new concept, like no one heard of cappuccinos. No one heard of lattes. I think people need to realize that this was a time where if you were a coffee dweller and you went to coffee shops, yes, but the at we were making this mainstream. So like
Yeah. Yes, it
tourists
was
and
not
other
mainstream.
and just mainstream people who weren't coffee dwellers, we were supposed to educate them on coffee. So people had such a fascination and a pushback towards this because they were like, trying to either they were trying to be cool and try to trip us up and go
Right.
decaf grande non-fat one sweet and low one equal latte or whatever and make it as complicated as possible in
Hmm.
order,
So
or
fun.
they wanted to look cool and know the order, they were very proud of themselves, or they wanted to be like just give me regular coffee, I
Yeah.
mean it's bullshit. So it was
Yes.
such
Yes.
a thing, like it's not like today it was all about knowing what a cappuccino was. So like people would order a cappuccino, we give it to them, and they're like, there's no coffee in here. Why is this so light? It was a constant problem.
I do remember that. Why is there no milk in here?
And we go,
Well,
and here's our attitude. Um, that's
that's a
a
latte.
cappuccino. And we'd
Yeah.
hear,
Where's my Starbucks?
yeah, where's our Starbucks? Like,
Mhm.
where? And it was really like that, this attitude of people would just get so irritated. But the phenomenon happened was it started to become a symbol of like
Status.
luxury and
Yes,
status.
very
So we
much so.
started to attract a lot of actors, a lot of famous people. It became so much like that that every shift we would say to each other, who came
We
in on your shift?
we also I was gonna say, the other thing that was very it's not like this now because everything is like selfies and take my picture here and companies now sort of want that because of social
Right,
media and they want
right.
Starbucks back then was like, don't let anybody take a picture in this Starbucks. Like, I remember
We had
Andy
to tell
I
people.
don't know if it was Andy. I'm gonna use Andy. God bless you, Andy. I hope it may not have been you. It may have
I
been Tony. It was somebody
It was
being
somebody.
like, "Those people are having a birthday gathering, and they're taking pictures in the store. You know that's not allowed." And I'm like, "Well, what am I supposed to do?
And we're talking old,
Confiscate
like,
their camera?"
camera
Yes.
yeah, like, it's gonna take them a while to develop, they're not gonna be able to upload it on
Well, I think they
anywhere.
might have had digital then. I don't know, maybe.
No.
You don't think they had digital cameras then?
And that and it a common occurrence of
Oh,
people
you're
just
probably
walking
right
around?
because I had,
Yeah.
like, the snap and
Yeah, it
go,
was still irregular cameras,
but they
people.
wouldn't let anybody in the store with a camera. Like, you could not take it was against the law, like, alarms would go off, you would get escorted out, it was a
Mhm.
big, big
Deal.
deal.
And I think that we need to stress that it went from 0 to 100 very quickly, and a part of it is because they did start showing people in the magazines when people read magazines, and they would get pictures of people walking around with a Starbucks cup, or
Celebs.
people celebs were
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah.
So it became a very big status symbol, and because we were in Studio City, for those of you who don't know Studio City, that's in the heart of LA where all the studios are, hence the name. And so a lot of the studio people were coming there and it was spreading like wildfire fire. So it was so crazy, so busy.
There was no I'm sorry to interrupt, but I will.
Yeah.
There was
I
no
mean, apparently.
I've had my latte.
I was gonna say
Uh
you've had your latte.
They didn't have any advertisement. I do remember that
No,
Starbucks did not there were no radio spots,
nope,
there was nothing in a magazine, it was
nope.
all word of mouth, and that was not never done, and the fact that it blew up so big at the time
Right.
was unheard of. Like, the
Yeah.
marketing was people talking
Yes.
because
And
people talk.
the thing and the marketing was also catching people with the people wanted to have the cup in their hand. Like they
Right.
wanted to walk in with that symbol in their hand, walk around town or whatever. And so I think people, you got to kind of picture that we were teaching people in those days, you had to teach people how to order,
Yep.
and when they did it out of order, we would say it in order, and people would just stare at us like, oh, I didn't know. And you're like, that's fine. And then it
Right.
became like a whole status thing of who knew the order, who knew the lingo. I used to watch people stand in line telling their friends, like, listen, I'll order because I know the lingo. And it was like a big deal to get it like
Yeah.
right. And
Yes.
that was because people thought we were being jerks, but because, let's explain to them why. Because when you said decaf, then we knew to go click, click to the decaf,
So
like
that was
we
the
had
first thing you did.
actual
Pull the
espresso,
Yeah,
like beans in
pull the
a
coffee.
grinder, like you can get at home now. But then it
Yeah,
was a big deal. It was like a cone, and
yeah,
then
the funnel.
right, and you knew to go get decaf, so you knew the drink. Non-fat, so you knew which type of pitcher, because we had a
Yep,
non-fat and a whole, so we knew which milk to
the
start
steam.
steam. And any adages like syrups, we knew what syrups to put in. The reason why we had in the order is because it was how
The
we
way
did
we
the drinks.
assembled the drink.
But it also was brilliant marketing to kind of get people to not know the quote magic of it all.
Right.
And that is actually how they build their company.
I do remember people being like, what's my drink?" And I'm like, "Decaf
Decaf
grande,
grande,
non-fat
not fat
latte."
latte.
And they'd be like, "Oh, I have to remember that." And it's like, "It's not your job. You can tell me whatever and I'll tell you what it is." "Oh, that's just cool." "Oh, that's cool." I do remember writers, or I remember when I didn't work at Studio City, we can talk about that for a second. When I went to the Toluca Lake store
Mhm.
next to Bob's, they Warner Brothers is right up the street from there. And I do remember a friend's writer calling our manager and being like, "What's the most complicated coffee drink you can think of?" And so, I don't know, they rattled off like decaf grande, non fat, 1.5, sweet and low, you know,
Whatever, yeah.
no foam latte or
Foam,
whatever.
and people used to ask it for extra hot at 158 degrees specifically.
That would drive me to
Oh my god,
madness.
I used to go like, "I'll make it hot." That's hot
Now it
enough for
is
you.
the temperature of magma. Enjoy.
They're like, "Is that extra hot?" "Oh, yes, bitch, it is hot.
They'd be like,
Good luck."
"Oh, that's good."
"Oh, that's hot." "Oh, yeah, that's what I thought." Because the 158 or thing, okay, anyway,
Oh
go ahead.
Lord, yes. No, but I'm just saying that it was one of the very first movies that I remember
LA
offhand.
LA
Was
stories?
LA Story didn't have Starbucks yet. No, it was
Oh,
they did have a coffee shop, probably. I don't remember the movie as well.
okay.
But what I'm talking about is Austin Powers. That movie in the 90s, I don't remember. I mean, we could probably Google when it was brought up, but his whole evil lair was
With
a
Starbucks.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
And two of our partners, hopefully we'll get maybe one or both of them on.
We don't think
Tammy,
we're gonna get Tammy because Tammy's
maybe Tammy. Maybe when she
maybe.
sees it, she might be like, okay, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Tammy and Matt were in it. They
They
played
were
the
in it. If
baristas.
you watch Austin Powers, Tammy and Matt are the baristas in the
Yes.
Austin Powers where Starbucks takes over. But I was going to say LA Stories was making fun of it because it was the phenomenon at the time, and they were like, I'll have all the people at the table were ordering complicated drinks like
Yeah, I
Starbucks.
don't know if Starbucks had hit the scene yet. I think LA Story was the 80s. I think we'll have to Google that.
Let's Google it.
I'm
I'll
just
Google it.
saying,
You
I'm
keep
trying.
talking. I'm
But
just gonna.
yes, but I also remember one of the first shows that wanted to have a Starbucks set was Ally McBeal. Because I remember they talked to Tony. They
Oh,
approached Tony about
snap.
it, and
Okay.
Tony was like, uh, I guess they were picking his brain, or everything had to go through corporate. But I remember they built a Starbucks set for Ally McBeal down in their Manhattan Beach studios for Ally McBeal, and that was one of the first shows that was able to use Starbucks as Starbucks and not an offshoot or like a generic version of Starbucks. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
I see. LA Stories was 91.
Okay, so it
So,
was still a little before.
but it was still kind of making like a
Well,
scene.
yeah, coffeehouse culture had started in the 90s. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
it was
Right.
still a thing.
Right.
Starbucks just sort of
Pushed it.
elevated it to like a level
Mhm.
that had not been seen yet. There was still coffee bean and tea leaves back then too. I mean,
No,
those
no, no,
were
no, there was one. One coffee bean and tea leaf, and you wanna know how I know why? There
yes.
was a coffee bean and tea leaf that was across away from
Yeah, it was
Starbucks.
off of Laurel Canyon also.
Yeah, it was right across the street, and we have to realize we worked there before there were frappuccinos also. And they had an ice blended coffee drink, and the coffee bean tea was only in LA. They had an ice blended mocha drink that used to have a line out the door. That's all that people wanted from them.
Right.
Mostly they had tea and stuff, but we definitely took that business, at the coffee business. But us, we used to actually walk
America.
over there and get their ice blended mocha drink because it was so good. Starbucks started to notice it. The reason why I know it was only one is because years later, when I left Starbucks, Coffee Bean, I was going to work there, and they told me how the one shop they had was owned by a couple, and they sold it to this very wealthy man who
Hmm.
wanted to open them all over LA. That's how I know the
Got it.
story.
Well,
But
see, I did not know this.
there you go.
You are a plethora of knowledge.
Am I? That's what I thought. But
Except you
no,
didn't know LA story. But anyway, that's fine. I don't hold that
but
against you.
91 is actually
Close
close, and
ish.
Starbucks was open in LA in
Well, that's
91.
true. That's true.
But it
You're right.
didn't hit the phenomenon that
Right.
we saw till when we were working.
Correct.
And I will say that, and Tony will tell us this when we have him on, that he said that we were the fourth busiest store in the whole company.
I
So
mean,
that's how
felt like
busy we
it.
were. Yeah. And so, lastly, just to kind of throw in just a little bit in case people are wondering, back then, there were no sandwiches, there was no making anything. We had pastries that were delivered
So
and pushed into the store at like 5, 4, 3 in the morning because, that was safe. They're like, yeah, the pastry guy's just going to come in there, unlock. There was no alarms or anything. Push the pastries in there, leave them for you in the morning. And we're like, okay, sounds like a plan. And the reason why they didn't let us cut anything, warm anything up, and that freaked people out. And I told Jeff that I later learned that Starbucks, and I could be corrected, and Tony can correct us, that I later learned that it had, because I was always interested in the business side of
yes,
Starbucks because it
yes, you were.
fascinated me.
Hmm.
Um, that they had a retail license, and so that's how they got away with not, that they couldn't, like, they didn't have a food license, so they couldn't.
They weren't a restaurant.
They weren't a restaurant, so
Right.
we loved it because people would go, "Can you warm that bagel?" No, cannot. Here's your bagel with your dumb little packet of cream with a plastic knife.
Can you slice it? Nope.
Nope. They're like, "Really?"
Here's a
Yeah.
plastic knife. Good luck.
And then we're like, "Why don't you go down to your local?" Oh, forgot. Starbucks shut your local coffee shop down. Dude, I guess.
Ouch. That stung a little bit, Adela. Oh, just a skosh. Uh,
Why
but
don't you show Jeff
what?
your old apron? Show them the old
Oh God.
apron.
Well, they still look the same, I
I
think.
don't think so, no, because I'm even looking at it, and it looks like I think the Starbucks is bigger on it. You guys
Well,
tell us. You tell us. Does it look
this
the same?
was the orig. Look, there's the little logo, lady. They had
Don't they look
pocket.
longer now?
It
The
had
back then?
pocket. It had
They have
pockets.
pockets,
This has a big hole in the pocket, which means it was used a lot.
and it's
Uh,
long. I remember I used to fold mine up because I was like, "This ain't cute. It's not cute on me."
oh
So I
yeah,
would.
Adela did. She wore little sweaters over her. I'm
Mhm.
cold.
I was like, "Yeah, these days I'm not cold because I'm a
And we
lot
worked there
older. I'm
before
hot all the time."
this. We worked there before we had to wear these. Remember
Yeah.
these?
Oh, when they said they were going to implement hats, I was like, I'm not. I'm out. That's when we actually all, and I think we could end it on this note where we
Hilarious.
knew we did predict. We said now that they're doing things like hats, they're trying to turn us into McDonald's, and a lot of us were like, they're going to turn Starbucks into McDonald's. But this is just the foundation. We just barely scratched the surface, but if you get the concept, then
Yes.
you'll understand the stories
We
of
have so many stories.
so many stories.
I mean, celebrity sightings, partner
Mhm.
sightings. I mean, stories.
Love, love, like flaring up at Starbucks, kind of.
Oh,
Was there? Well, a
some
little
other
bit.
things that would never fly today.
Never
I won't
fly
say.
today.
We'll wait for Tony when we start on that one.
Yeah, we'll wait for Tony when it started that one
This
because,
was my hat pin. I just wanted to share with you.
oh my God, you
Look
wore
how old it is. I mean, it's
I
so like
know.
tarnished. Ugh. Why do you save this, Jeff?
Well, you saved it for right now. You saved it for right
There's
now,
a
Jeff.
reason for everything.
I
I
mean, kind
mean,
of.
knowing you all this time, I
It,
know
it
that there
we
is a
built
reason for everything.
we built it up to here. And we'll have to also tell the story on one episode of that Jeff was on my podcast, and we'll tell the story of
Yes.
how we actually became friends. It's a very mystical, magical, healing story. But Jeff,
A
real
journey.
quick, I just know this is a random, and I'm kind of pulling this out of the left field. But my favorite thing that you have
Hmm.
in your possession is the
Yes.
drink coupons.
Okay. Now
Tell
these.
everybody what these are.
So back in the day, if we fucked up your drink, can I say that? Yeah.
Yeah,
If we messed up your drink, we fucked up your drink. It
fucked
took
up
too.
your drink.
It took too long, or you were going to complain. Well, that
As
took 2 extra
mhm.
minutes, and I've
Yeah,
been in line for 10 minutes.
yeah.
Okay, I have to go back for just 1 second. I'll never forget the time when I was at Studio City working a morning shift,
Okay,
and somebody. So on both sides of the street were, well, one side had newspaper stands, and the other one was a bus stop. So they were red zones. And I'll never
okay.
forget, this woman came up and she's like, can I just get that real quick? I parked in the red zone. And I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't have parked in the red zone.
Damn! Snap! Snap! Snap!
Mic
Snap!
drop.
Where's my Starbucks?
That's right.
She was an a-hole. Anyway, okay, so
Okay.
what I'm about to, so if we messed up your drinks,
We had a lot of people. We have lots of stories like that woman.
uh,
Yes, go ahead.
if we could get Sheila on. Sheila, yeah, I don't know if you worked with Sheila. Anyway, she has a
Okay.
good story about that. Okay, so we would give
I
them
have a good story about that too, but go on.
have a free drink on us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Look at,
were they locked
this is
up?
an antique, ladies and
It is an
gentlemen.
antique. This was like they were in the drawer at the cash register
Not
for
monitored.
anybody to grab. To grab more than we needed to sometimes barter for next door
Maybe.
31 flavors ice cream? Yes. Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe.
You can't prove it.
Can't prove it.
But I have a couple of different
Look,
from different generations.
oh
Like we have
my
this one, that
god. How
one.
that went up longer? Like, not
Oh,
speed. We're not
this
speed
one.
dating here.
This one.
Okay, there. Okay.
We're not speed dating. I had no idea. So there's this one.
Okay.
There's the Orig. This was the OG one.
That's the OG.
Okay. And then they started getting fancier. Which one? Oh, so this one, there was this one.
Yep.
Okay. And then is this even one? I don't know. This may be something. Oh, I don't remember this one, but this was.
That was it. That might have came in that because they when we used to sell cups, like cups for
Mm,
sale, they would come with a
you're
free
right, because
drink
this says
coupon.
get a second beverage of equal or lesser value free
Yes.
with this coupon.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of them, and I don't want to get in trouble for that. But
Why would you get
they,
in trouble?
I don't
We
know.
don't work for Starbucks anymore.
What?
Unless we are open for sponsorship, though. Please contact us at
Side note.
Sign Note.
I'll turn
Yes.
these in if you sponsor us. Uh, I'll give you my whole collection.
Sponsor us. I won't wear a hat, though. I still will not wear a hat.
This
Just
is what
saying.
happens when you wear a hat. You lose your hair.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't want to do that.
Yeah, don't wear a hat. But the coolest, I do think that the funniest thing is that we literally would hand those out like water because people are like,
Oh,
well, I feel like here's a free coupon. All right. Because like we were like, just give it to them. Just give it to them.
shut them up. Oh, it wasn't hot enough? You didn't burn your tongue? Oh, here. Sorry. Guess you're parked in the red zone again.
We use those like candy, and we absolutely when I worked in Vegas, this is my last story about this. We would take tips because we would take the tips and we would go to the casino and we would go to the cashier and they would turn the coins into cash. And what did I bring along with me? Oh yeah, baby, those coupons.
That's amazing. They
I'd be like,
held currency. They really
her
did.
currency. I'd be like, "You want a little bit? Want a little bit of this?" And they were like,
I know you
"Just
want
Vegas, baby.
some.
Like, give me
Get
those."
your grande latte. Come on, girl. Uh,
But that's very I love that you have those. Okay, so let's
yes.
talk about next week. We are planning
Next week. Oh
on
my God.
having
Hold on.
I know I should have a drum roll. Should I put the drum roll in here?
Do it. Do a real drum roll because that was like a bad one.
Okay, so you do it. Do the drum roll. Well, that might hurt people's ears.
Edit. Oh,
Drum roll.
that looked like a typewriter. But okay, anyway, you get the idea, people. A drum roll. Think of it.
That drum roll I got was really good. Okay, anyway, we're gonna have our manager Tony Jensen on,
Where it all started.
and where it all started, and he is gonna fill in the blanks. And he is probably going to be shocked when he hears this that we actually said he was one of the best bosses we ever had. And and we're gonna ask him all the questions about what it was like to what was management training like in those days?
How
What
was to
did
manage
he
us?
Yeah, and what was he thinking and what was he going through? Because I'll tell you one thing about Tony, he was very chill. He was very
The best.
easygoing in
The best.
in the most stressful environment. That's when I remember going like, how is he like this? I didn't get it because I was like, it is so crazy. And he would just like roll with these punches really well.
Yeah.
So and he made it fun. I kind of say my favorite show is The Office. And I
Yes.
feel like he
It's
like
a
at
good
the
one.
end when Jim, if you ever watch the finale, Jim's like telling him, "You were the best boss." That's kind of how I would say about Tony. Yes,
Yeah.
Tony. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. God damn it.
Now your ego's huge
Yeah,
again.
we got it. We got it. All
Yes.
right.
Well, I will say I never saw him get angry or frustrated or like pissed
No,
off
he
at
didn't.
anybody. I mean, at least if he did, I never saw it. But he was so chill. He was like, thank God for Tony. That's
Yeah,
all
because
I can
he was
say.
so chill. Because let me tell you, it was insanity. It wasn't normal. We were dealing with. And he told me on Instagram, he was like, "We rocked it," and he would do that. He'd be like, "You guys rocked it." And I think what was good is that he didn't really expect us to make it our life.
Right.
He was like, "Yeah, we're doing this," and he got people
Yeah,
had
it
other
wasn't
things
his
going
life
on.
either. I know he had other stuff
He had
going on
other
at the
stuff
time.
going on too, and so anyway, so we're gonna have Tony on.
Cannot wait.
It'll be
It's
so
gonna.
much
I
fun.
haven't seen him face to face
I
in
know this is, and
forever.
like we had a reunion in the store
Oh yeah, that was a long
about
time ago.
10 years
10
ago,
years. Well,
and then
how old is
yeah,
I'm
it's about
trying to
10 years.
think. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
know because
because
I go on my kid's age, so it's 10 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And also, when we had the reunion in the store, nobody in that store fucking cared, let me tell you. They
They
did
were
not
like,
care. They were
"Who
like,
are
"We
these
in
people?"
the store, we're having it, and we're having a reunion." They were like, "Okay, cool, whatever."
They're like, "Okay,
They're like,
shh."
"Alright, yeah, do you want a latte? Like, what do you want?" Yeah, it was really funny
They
because
were
nobody
like, "Play the soundbite.
they were li
Where's my Starbucks?"
Where's my Starbucks?
I remember I told somebody when I went to the store, I was like, "I opened the store." They were like, "Wow, wow, okay."
Okay.
Poor kids, like, "Fucking cares, lady." But anyway, but we're gonna have him on,
Tony,
and that'll be our next one. So welcome to our first
so fun
episode of
when Starbucks was fun.
and our tagline is "When we were young." I don't wanna keep saying that because 'cause I'm young now, bitch. Okay?
You got some filter on then, girl.
No, I got natural filter, baby. Natural. All
It
natural.
is when Starbucks was fun and we were young, which is true. We were
That
much
yeah.
younger.
The name of the podcast is When Starbucks Was Fun, but our tagline was When Starbucks Was Fun When We Are Young. And thank you for joining us and all of your back then we called it Starbuckians. All of you Starbuckians, we support what you're doing and remember that it was people like us that kind of helped this get going and trust me, we did believe in wanting to be treated a certain way. I'm so
Oh, for
glad
sure.
that they've actually all joking aside, they've proved a lot of things that we didn't have. Thank God.
Yep.
We'll get into making mocha and what the hellish life that was. And we'll get
Oh, I'm having flashbacks. I'm coughing. I have mocha lung.
we'll get we'll get into pastry lighting and our
Oh
pastry
Lord.
queen, Brenda.
Oh
We'll
God.
get
When
into
she comes
Tracy
on, come
tags
on.
and our biscotti jars that were these heavy glass things that you probably could die from. We'll get into all of that to come. So this was a little longer than normal. Normally, we're going to try to shoot for like an hour episode, but it's our first one. So thanks for joining us. Jeff,
Thank you
where can
so.
people find you and follow you?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Jeff Funny.
Okay.
JEFFUNNY. Two F's, two N's. Jeff and Funny. Get it?
Get it? Okay. Um, and you can find me at Adele Levine on Instagram. And I have another podcast called The House Medium. So if you're somebody into coffee and into paranormal, but mostly paranormal, if you're into
Paranormal.
paranormal, go check out The House Medium where people send in their stories and I have them on. And you could follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Adele Levine. All my stuff's Adele Levine and my website, adelelevine.com. And don't
Starbucks. What
forget
about
to
this one?
follow our Instagram.
This one.
This one, when Starbucks was fun on
There's supposed to be
Instagram.
something here, I guess.
Please follow us on there and also like and review and
On
be
app.
nice because it's our first episode.
Yeah, come
Like
on.
and review on Apple Podcast because it lifts our algorithm up, 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 up. Thank you
You
so
want to
much.
hear more of these stories? You know you do.
Yeah, exactly. And
Come on.
let's take out with our tagline, Jeff.
When we were young.
When Starbucks was fun. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming.
See you soon.